Hello there. Before I start this video, I'm just going to suggest that it gets into some things that I covered. There was a reason I did the last video on Zionists, and I know I didn't caption it right, so people really didn't get what the video was about. Unfortunately, I don't know, I'm still learning YouTube and how to use everything. And I can't figure out how to put a caption underneath, so I'm going to have to get somebody to help me, I guess. And also, this will be a probably 3-part series. For the rest of all of it, I was supposed to have a special guest, my friend, helping me, but she got really busy with work. So I'm going to just do the first little bit myself. And then we've got some news. Well, we're going to leave it up to you on what you believe. We'll give you all the questions, what we think, with so many things that have to do with Watchtower. It's a guessing game. But I will say that you'll be very surprised by the end of our 3-part series on what's really happening with Watchtower. So this part, to start with, I'm just going to start with a little video here, and then we'll go from there.
What's going on here, my friend?
This is the emergency broadcast system. We are under attack by conventional forces of the Russian army. It is believed the lead waves were disguised as commercial charter flights. Communications have broken down with other parts of the country. Large areas of the Midwest may have been overrun.
They know who all of you are. They're looking for you.
You're 40 miles behind enemy lines.
I just want to go home. They took a lot of people away.
Where's my dad, Mr. Eckert?
What if love somebody, Andy? I'm gonna die before it happens.
They're gonna kill us! All of us! So why should we be different? Because we live here!
Not bad for a bunch of kids, huh?
Mama'd be real proud.
So that was just a quick reminder of what I'd done in my last video, some of the pictures that were really hard to see. I know the screen was really small. A reminder of all the names that the Zionists, or basically the Khazarian Mafia, have used through the years to hide their identity. They are very good masters of disguise, and they will be anything they want to be. So I'm just going to give you, basically, they have, well, you already know about the New World Order. We've talked about that. And we know that the Rothschilds have done the federal banks of the world. You can see that I mean, all you have to do is turn on not the news, basically look online and do your digging. And you'll find that the BRICS nations keep expanding and expanding, and they're all getting away from that privatized Rothschild banking. So when this is how it happened, that it goes back that the Zionists, Bolsheviks, globalists, Khazarian Mafia, whatever you want to call them, why they hate Russia so much, and why, and because they are in charge, they're the high up, the elites. There's only 6 companies, which all go back to BlackRock or Vanguard. You can check it out yourself, do your own research, and you'll find that out. That own all the media in the world and the movies that we watch. It all goes back to them. And if you look who owns it, you will find that it will be either a Rothschild, a Rockefeller, or one of their spouses. They may have married in, so their name is a little different. And another thing that I've found in all my research on bloodline families is they're really good at changing their names. Even the most high family in the world is Orsini. He was what they called the Grey Pope. And a lot of people, they can't prove it, of course. I mean, because they destroy their books, they destroy their history, so that, I mean, they keep it in safe places, but not that we can see. And very similar to Watchtower, wouldn't you say? There no more books, so that we can't show people what their history was like. So we've established that these Khazarian Mafia are fake Jews. They're not real Israelite Jews. They're not Hebrew at all. And they've gone about, and even to this day, with their pagandom and their worship. And their worship is to Baal, who is a pagan god, and basically they're worshiping Satan. So because what I said in the previous video, when the Khazars and Russia, they had been kind of kicked out of every place they had been because they they were stealing people's babies and sacrificing them to Baal. They were doing cannibalism, eating human flesh, drinking human blood. And the Russian had given them a little area of land called Khazar, which today is kind of Georgia. I think I had said it was Ukraine, but it's very close to Ukraine. And so the Russians basically got just tired of their children missing, of not just children. I mean, they would befriend a whole family of travelers that would be going through the district, and they would bring them into their house. They were really good at being they were good at being nice people. That's why we can look at so many of these globalists. Oh, they seem so nice. Look at, they own this charity. They're running this charity. Well, they know how. They know how to suck us in. They know how to make us think that they're really good people. They've been trained in that. But what they would do is there'd be travelers going to at that time, lots of them by ship through that area. And they would say, hey, you guys, you look like you're hungry. You look like you need a bed to sleep in. Come to my house and I'll make a fire and I'll give you a bed and I'll give you food. And they would keep these people at their place for a couple of days and get to know everything about them, where they were going, who their family was, what their bank accounts were, everything everything. They got to know everything about these people. Then they would kill the people. They would take on their identity, and then they would go and pretend to be these people. And this is how they got rich. They would steal everything they had, and this is basically the beginnings of how they became the richest people and the elites of the world. It was all nefarious, all killing and eating children, basically, and offering them up to Baal. So the Russians had just got tired of it. They'd had them there for quite a while, and they said, you guys have to leave. And they kicked them out. There was actually a bit of a war. They ended up on both sides, people dying. There were some that were good and wanted to be good. There were some of the Khazarians that were good that decided to stay in Russia, and they actually did still practice Judaism. And those people, to this day, that's why we can't say that all Jews are fake Jews, because, a lot of them are really good people. It's just like, the only way I can describe it is most Jehovah's Witnesses are very good people, but they're following the higher ups. It's the higher ups that are performing the crimes against humanity, which letting children die, that's blood sacrificing. Letting your children die without a blood transfusion, that's part of their ritual. That's part of the Zionism ritual, is blood sacrifice. And we will get into more of this as we get farther into the series. So basically, some stayed, but most left. And now they've got a grudge against Russia, right? They're pissed. They're mad because they got kicked out of what they thought was their homeland, but it wasn't. So years go on. They don't forget their grudges. So years go on. And what happens? In 1917, the Bolsheviks, who were another name for the fake Jews or the Khazarian Mafia, they became the communists, and the Bolsheviks went in and killed off the entire Russian royal family, who were Christians, and they were very good people. If you ever want to do if you want to do some research, I don't know, for some reason I've always, ever since I was a little kid, I've always been enthralled by the history of the royal family and the royalty of Russia. So I've done a lot of reading on them, and they were good people. A lot of things like the Rasputin thing, a lot of that is lies made up by the Zionist fake Jews. A lot of things you have to really dig through and look on various sites, not always Google, and read some books, and you'll find the real true history. So basically, but actually I regress a little bit, because before they went in and killed all the royal family, the Rothschilds had tried to set up their central reserve, their reserve banking, so that they owned all the banking in the United States during President Lincoln's day. And President Lincoln didn't have enough money because of the war and things that he was going through. He didn't have enough money to fund the war and fight against it was a civil war, but there's a lot more to that as well if you go into history. And what happened is he was fighting the Federal Reserve. He did not want the Rothschilds to come in and own all the banks and own all the money system in the US. He didn't want that to happen because he knew that once they came in and owned that money system, then the people would no longer be free. They would be slaves to the Rothschilds and to that money system. Because if you owe money to the bank or owe money to anybody, you are a slave to them. You just face it, you are, because until you pay that off, they can take anything from you. They even try your firstborn child. I don't think that would go over in US, but who knows? So anyways, what had happened is the King of Russia had bailed out President Lincoln and given him money so that it postponed going into the Federal Reserve. And basically that is the reason that sorry, my hair is in my eyes. Basically, that's the reason that Lincoln was murdered, was because, and you'll go back if you start studying some of the history, you'll find out so many murders, especially of high up political leaders, have been all about the Federal Reserve. Anybody that's tried to start their own money system away from the Rothschilds will end up dead. We've got Lincoln dead. Reagan tried to get away from it and they shot him. Didn't kill him, but they shot him. President Kennedy, they figure that's the reason he was murdered, because he wanted to start up his own. He actually even had some printed up, called them the, I believe, the banknotes, or he had a name for them. Even over in Africa, we're told lies. The reason Gaddafi was murdered because he was going to be able to look after his own people, and they were going to have their own money. Very interesting, actually, about Gaddafi, all the things he did for his people. And I'm not saying these people haven't done bad things. They probably have, but not as bad as the corporation United States government has done. They have done ever since World War II. It has been non-stop war. And if you look at it, I don't think there's any of those wars that the U.S. corporation has not been involved in. So anyways, so after Lincoln received enough money from the Russians to keep himself afloat so that he didn't have to let the Rothschild banking come in. Now these people are really mad, right? So that, and then they've already been kicked out of Russia, so they've got a hate on for Russia, and they want to make sure they always do. They always look like the good guys. Check how many charities some of these people own and what they've been doing with these charities. Most of them have something to do with children. And I'll tell you, to this day, they're still sacrificing children. We're going to do a show on that too. It'll be very, very hard to watch, but eventually I will try not to show you like things that I've been shown. So now that brings us up to current days and current affairs, and we're coming now to 2016. Up until that time, or a few years before then, communism was dying. It was dying down, a slow death. And 2016, Putin had been tired of being told what to do by these Zionists and by the Rothschilds, and having them run their banks and run their religions and telling people what to think and what they couldn't think, etc., etc. So he came up with a scheme with some of his generals, and they managed. I'm sure it didn't happen overnight. I'm sure I've heard that it started a few years before that. But by 2016, he was able to get the Rothschild bankers out of Russia. And I believe, I didn't write down the date. It took them longer than that. I think it was up until about 2020 that they finally, 2020 or 2021, that they finally had gotten them out. And we know what's happened now. Russia has joined BRICS. They've got their own currency. It's gold backed, as well as 80 some other countries in the world they started it. And they've gotten away from that Rothschild banking, which means eventually all the money in the world will go to gold and silver, precious metal backed commodity, which means the Rothschilds are not happy at all. But so that was in 2016, they got rid of the Rothschilds. Now, in 2017 is when they banned Jehovah's Witnesses. So why would they do that? Well, when I first started doing my deep dive and looking into whether they were a secret society and where they came from, the name Russell being one of the 13 elite families, I found out that if you go back far enough and you account for the elites are very good at saying they either had a stillborn child or they have twins and they send one twin somewhere, but they always break up their family because their bloodline is very, very important to them. So this is why it's so hard to get to the bottom of who's who in the elites, because they change their names, they send children off to be raised somewhere else and by someone else, and they take on that name, etc., etc. And this is how they hide themselves, and they manage to stay elite. And they have very careful records of who are the elite, because when they do their blood sacrifices, they want to make sure that they're not killing any of their own. But a couple of years ago, when I first started looking into this, I did a very deep dive when on one of our big picture episodes, and I was looking into the where the Russell bloodline came from, and I pretty well figured it out. If you took a stillbirth and I will explain this one day without making this, I can't make this go much longer, but basically the Russell bloodline goes back to Rothschild. So from what I could tell, from the information that I've got it, I printed it out. So the Russell goes back to Rothschild. So if this is true information, then wouldn't that make sense that, and Russia has kept very good records as well. They haven't burnt all their books like Western society has. So wouldn't it make sense that they would kick out Jehovah's Witnesses too? And what for? On extremism. And we know they're extreme. They won't allow blood transfusions. They shun family members. They beat their children. They put up with pedophilia. In Ray Fran's book, he gave the example. If you haven't read that book, you got to read it. But he gave the example of a sister in another country that wanted to divorce her husband because she caught him having with an animal. And she was not allowed to get a divorce because that was not that it has to be actual copulation between a man and a woman before they had grounds for divorce. So even if your husband was fornicating with another man, and you know how they do it, that was not grounds that you could have a divorce and get remarried. So if you go back and you look at all the rituals and all the things that these Zionists and these Satan worshipers do, you can tie it so much in with the extremism of Jehovah's Witnesses. So my guess is that Putin saw this and decided, hey, we're getting rid of them too. So I'm going to show you something here. I'm going to put something here for you to see, and then we'll finish up this video. So basically that's called Executive Order 13818. Now that was brought in by President Trump when he was president. But to this day, and I've said before, I am not a Trump supporter. I am on the side of anybody that doesn't want to kill children. And that is it. Whoever doesn't want to kill children or hurt women or condone abuse in the family, that's the side I'm on. But Trump did that executive order, and Biden has never, while he's been in office, he has never, play with words, trumped it. The order is still there. So this is where I'm getting to. So after that, also in 2017, Brooklyn Bethel all of a sudden was sold. And that is another show that we'll be doing on the tunnels under Brooklyn Bethel, etc. But all of it, one works into the other. It's all a fine woven web, if you think of it. So, but what makes this really interesting in lieu of that executive order is who bought Bethel, Brooklyn Heights Bethel, and all the buildings. Well, from what we've been able to find, yes, right at the time, everybody knew that Kushner, who was Trump's, or was, I don't even know, son-in-law, bought it. He was part of the Trump team, and they were going around and they were taking people's possessions that were involved in crimes against humanity. So all of a sudden, they moved out of Brooklyn Bethel. So now I'm going to show you a little monologue of some of the other places, not religious people, but a lot of sports stars, Hollywood stars. We've all heard the expression that he sold his soul to the devil. Never thought that meant much before, but apparently it does. These people have sold their soul to the devil, which means in order to do it, they have to do a blood sacrifice. And if you look on, I think I mentioned that already before, if you look at most of the people that are really big in the music industry or sports or Hollywood, go into their history, and almost all of them have had a loved one die, and it's part of their worship to Satan. And if they want to get of out of their contract to Satan, they have to die. So there have been many that have been placed in the witness protection program that have come out with a lot of stories and proof of things. So to me, that would be very similar to Jehovah's Witnesses. Once you get baptized and you decide that you don't want to go along with their beliefs anymore, you're as good as dead. As a matter of fact, they've said that. You're dead to me. How many parents have said to their child, "You're dead to me"? And we're shunned, and we're treated just like we're dead. So a lot of similarities between the Zionists and the Jehovah's Witness faith. So I'm going to leave you. I'm going to put a little video at the end here from President Kennedy for you to show that he believed in secret societies. And actually, it was probably the first thing when I first started, after I'd been gone out of that religion for so long, it was probably one of the first things I heard. And it made me really think, hey, I already knew about Russell and that he had been a Freemason and so on. And I thought, boy, I got to look into this more, because I kind of put the two together then. So my way of researching has kind of been up that alley. It's not all Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's why I didn't have that video on them saying that Russia was the king of the North. I don't even know how to look through jw.org anymore. I mean, I can, but it just depresses me. I hate seeing their stuff there. It just makes me mad. I get so mad when I think of all the things that they've been able to get away with all these years. So I'm going to say goodbye, and as soon as Lori's not so busy, our next video, we are going to show where I'm going to show you the sales. We have copies of the sales documents of Brooklyn Bethel. And it looks to me that all of it's in a holding company. It doesn't really say, they're all the same. They all have the same holding company that they seem to be in. But what's going to be the kicker in this is we could not find anything on a sale of Warwick or them buying it. There's nothing. And before we do our next video, if somebody can find something for me, that would be great, because I'm never above saying I'm wrong. But from what I've found, I think everybody is going to be very surprised on this. So thank you for watching, and just enjoy this last little clip that I'm going to put up. And ASAP, Lori and I will get on with the next one, because I know that you'll all be very interested to find out some of the things that we've found out. See you later, folks.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control.
While the Warren Commission and media found that Lee Harvey Oswald killed Kennedy alone, the House of Representatives Select Committee on Assassinations found a high probability that 2 gunmen fired at President Kennedy. It also found Kennedy was probably assassinated as a result of conspiracy.
A monolithic and ruthless conspiracy. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.